Hi everyone, welcome back to the series. In this video we're taking a closer look at prompts, one of the most powerful ways to make your agent more dynamic and intelligent. If you have ever wanted your assistant to do things like summarize a document, reword a message, or generate content on the fly, prompts are exactly what you need. Let me show you how they work. So, what are prompts? Prompts are basically constant instructions you give to the AI model, telling it how to generate a response. They are ideal when you want the agent to go beyond simply answering a question or triggering a workflow and instead generate outputs based on provided input. Typical use cases include summarizing content, extracting key information from text, or creating new content such as drafting a response to a customer request. So how does it work? Behind every prompt, there are three key building blocks: input, knowledge, and model. And I will explain them quickly in simple terms. So first, you have got the input. This is basically what you're feeding into the prompt. It can be something the user types, a file they upload, or even a calculated value using Power Effects. For example, maybe the user pastes in a long description and you want to summarize it. That text becomes the input. Or maybe you're specifying some relevant attributes such as employee ID, employee name, or role. Those can be passed to the prompt as well. So the input is what the model will work with. Then you have the knowledge component. This allows you to bring in additional context from your structured sources. Currently, prompts only support Dataverse tables as your knowledge sources. Instead of reacting to the input alone, your agent can combine it with relevant data such as your customer preferences, product information, or HR policies to generate a more accurate and informed responses. So you don't need to use this every time, but it's especially valuable when prompts needs to be grounded in real company data. And finally, there is the model. This is the engine doing the work. You have got to choose which language model you want to use, like GPT-4, GPT-4.1 mini, or even more advanced ones through Azure AI Studio. Depending on what you need, speed, accuracy, or creativity, you can pick the one that fits best. So the model takes the input, combines it with the knowledge if provided, and follow your custom instructions to generate smart responses. So when do you use a prompt? Again, use a prompt when you need your agent to actually generate something, not just answer from a document or follow a step-by-step process. Think, summarize this, rewrite that, give me suggestions. Those are all great prompt use cases. Okay, so let's explore how to use prompts in Copilot Studio. As I mentioned before, prompts are part of the tools capabilities available on Copilot Studio. To add a prompt, I just need to click on Add a Tool. This will open the Add Tool panel. Then I need to click on New Tool. And from here, I will select Prompt. When I click on Prompt, this will open this Prompt Builder. The Prompt Builder includes a section for instructions. So this is basically where I create my prompt. And the Model Response section, which basically will show me the results of that particular prompt. From here, I can also select the model. By default, the model is GPT 4.1 mini, but I can choose from a list of available models. In this case, for example, we have models like 4.1 or even GPT-5, which have been recently released. But if I also have Azure AI Foundry models, I can connect to those models from here. I have also the Add Content section. This will allow me to configure my input parameters. So I can create text input parameters. I can import or I can use an image or documents as an input source of information for my prompt. Or I can even configure different formulas using Power Effects. I also have Dataverse as an option of available knowledge sources that I can use as part of my prompt. If I click Dataverse, this will open a list of accounts available on Dataverse on my current environment. But in this case, since we are just working with SharePoint, we won't use Dataverse for this prompt. Okay, I'm gonna reuse a prompt that I have previously created, so I'm just gonna copy and paste my prompt here. And this is a very simple prompt that will allow me to create a draft welcome email for a new hire. As you can see here, I have provided some instructions such as that I want an HTML formatted body of a welcome email for a new employee. And I'm also providing some guidance, like for example, I want the email to use a warm and friendly tone. I'm also asking to include some details. We will configure these input parameters in a minute. But you can see I'm asking to include details like the employee name, company name, job title, start date, manager name, and the onboarding body name. I'm also asking to use bold text for key information and bullet points where appropriate. And finally, I'm telling the prompt to sign the email with HR department. What I need to do now is to configure the input parameters. So for example, in this case, I'm gonna say body of a welcome email for a new, and I'm gonna create two parameters here. The first parameter is gonna be employee type. And here I need to specify some sample data to test this prompt from the prompt builder. So in this case, this is gonna be a full-time employee. And then I'm gonna add an additional parameter here, which is gonna be the work arrangement type. And here as a sample data, I'm gonna specify that this is gonna be a remote employee. Now I need to configure the rest of the parameters. So let's create employee name. I'm gonna add some sample information, company name, the job title. Let's say this is gonna be a software engineer, start date, manager name, and the onboarding body name. In this case, I'm gonna create a parameter body name. Perfect, we have provided all the information that is needed. So let me click on test, and this will generate a prompt response for me. So as you can see here, it has created a body for that email. So this is an HTML format, and you can see the details of that particular email. If I want, I can continue customizing my prompt, but since this prompt looks like what I was expecting, I'm just gonna change the name of the prompt. In this case, it's gonna be draft welcome email new hire, and I'm gonna click on save. Okay, now I have to click on add and configure. So you will see that this is a very similar experience like what we did with a connector, because prompts are a different type of tools. So similar like what we did with agent flows or connectors, we need to configure the description, the title, the input parameters and output parameters. Perfect. Okay, so my prompt has been added. It has included the name of the prompt as well as the description. I can customize this description if I want. For example, let me put use this prompt to draft a welcome email for a new hire. And then I can even configure the input parameters. So you see, these are all the input parameters that I configured previously on my prompt, including the employee type, work arrangement, employee name, and more. I can configure the order of the parameters. For example, let's say I want employee name to be first, then the employee type, the work arrangement. For company name, I can put that here. And I'm gonna start configuring some of these input parameters. For example, for the company name, I want to put a static text. So this is gonna be spec solutions. This is a sample text. So I don't need to ask for this information every time. Employee name is something that you will need to customize. And then another best practice is to configure the description of each of the input parameters, because if you remember, when we created these input parameters from the prompt builder, we didn't have the option to provide a description of those parameters. We just provided some sample data. So in this case, we will configure the description of each of those parameters. So to do that, I already have some sample description that I'm just gonna copy and paste to make it simple. Perfect. Work arrangement also, I have a description for this. This will allow the user to know what type of input information we can provide. For example, work arrangement. This could be the employee can work remotely, on-site, or in a hybrid environment. Job title. Let me copy and paste the description. Start date. Manager name. And here also something important is that we can configure this section, identify as. So instead of just receiving the user's entire response, we can specify the type of information we are expecting to get from that particular input parameter. In this case, the manager name is a person name, so I can select this type of information. And I will do the same for body name. First, I'm gonna copy the name, the description, and then in identify as, I'm gonna select person name. Perfect. And finally, let me create a description for the employee name. And I'm gonna choose person name. So by now it seems like we have configured the most basic and fundamental information for this prompt. I'm gonna click on save. Now click on tools. And we see that we have our prompt configured and part of the tools section of our agent. Okay, so now we are ready to test our prompt. To do that, I'm just gonna refresh my chatbot and ask, help me draft a welcome email for my new hire. So Copilot Studio has identified that my prompt is the best tool to use to execute this particular task. If I click here, I can see the different input parameters for this prompt. For example, in company name, it already has a static text that we previously configured, so we don't need to provide that information anymore. But for the rest of the input parameters, the agent is gonna ask me for that information. That's why it's important the description I have provided to each of the parameters, because when the agent asks for this input information, it will provide more context. So in this case, this is a full-time employee. My employee is gonna be remote. The name of my new hire is Maria. It's gonna be a software engineer. And the start date, let's say, is gonna be this one. Finally, I'm gonna provide the name of the manager. Let's say that I'm gonna be the manager. And the onboarding body name. So as you can see, I have provided all the information requested by the agent, and you can see that it has captured all the information, and now all the input parameters has all the information required to create my draft welcome email. You can see the response here as well as in the chatbot. So it seems like this welcome email is what I was looking for, but I can even continue interacting with the agent and asking for some modifications. For example, maybe the start date was a different date, so I'm gonna ask, please change the start date to and you will see that the agent will again use the prompt and will change the parameters. So in this case, it has changed the start date and it has returned the new welcome email with the updated data. Awesome, this is great. But now let's say that I'm going to use this body email and use that to send an email to the new hire. To do that, I just need to add a new tool. So let's go back to tools. And this time I'm gonna add a connector. So if you remember, we used the sent an email action before. So I'm gonna use that. I already have created a connection. So I'm just gonna click on it and configure. And now I just need to configure the title, the description, and the input parameters. So in this case, let's say that I'm gonna use this action to send a welcome email. And let's change the description. For this, let's be more specific. So I'm just going to copy a description that I already have here. For example, let's say that we will use this action to send a welcome email based on a draft email body that I will provide. Finally, let's configure the input parameters. So remember, we have three input parameters, to, subject, and body. In this case, let's configure the subject. Let's put just a static text like welcome email. Perfect. And for to, let's just configure the maybe the description. So in this case, I'm going to be specific that this is going to be the email address of the new hire. Finally, let's configure the body. Well, it seems like the body, we don't need to do anything here. We will provide the welcome email by using the prompt that we previously configured. So it seems like we are ready. I'm just going to click on save and click on tools. Awesome. Now you can see that two tools that we have configured. First, our prompt to create a draft welcome email for a new hire. And then the second tool is our connector to send a welcome email based on the draft body of the email created with the previous action. So to test this, I'm just going to click on refresh. Let me start again, and I'm going to send the prompt, help me create a draft welcome email for my new hire. Again, I'm gonna provide all the input parameters. So this is gonna be similar to what we did before. And it has successfully generated the welcome email. And now I can invoke the second action. So in this case, I'm gonna ask the following. Okay, now using the email body in HTML format, send a welcome email. And this time it's gonna invoke my send a welcome email action. This is our connector. So I'm gonna click on allow. And this action has been successfully executed. And we can verify this by accessing our email. So as you can see here, this is the email that we just previously created with our prompt, and using the send email action, we were able to use that same body of the email to create and submit this email. Awesome. Now, what happens if I want to have more control over my conversational flow? As you know, we can use topics to do that. And we know that from topics, we can invoke different tools. In this case, since my prompt is a different type of tool, I can invoke a prompt from an existing topic. I have already configured a topic that invoked my draft welcome email prompt, but I have done that in a different agent. So I just want to show you how this works. So let me go to this onboarding assistant agent. And from here, I'm going to select topics. And I have created this particular topic, send welcome email to new hire. So from here, you will notice that I'm starting with a trigger phrase. I'm specifying that I'm going to use this topic to send a welcome email to the new hire. And I also asking additional questions. For example, I am asking for the employee type. I'm specifying the different type of options the user can select, and I'm storing that information in a particular variable. So I have done that with the rest of the input information I need to provide to the prompt that we have recently seen in the previous scenario. So for example, I have a question for work arrangement, job title, date, the manager name, and the body name. And then I have added a condition. Something interesting that I have created here is that I can create different type of prompts. In this case, I have created two prompts. One prompt is going to create a draft welcome email for a remote employee, and the other will generate a draft welcome email for an on-site or hybrid employee. This is important because for example, an on-site employee or hybrid employee, I need to provide additional information in the welcome email, for example, the office location. So this will change. So the prompt is very similar, however, there are some minor variations. So basically what I did here is I added a condition and I specified depending of if the work arrangement type is remote, then you will use this particular action. This action is basically our existing prompt to draft a welcome email. But as you can see here, I have created another action that I have configured as well. That is when the employee is an on-site employee. So basically similar to what we have done before with connectors or agent flows in a topic, I have to configure the different input parameters, and these input parameters are the information that I have captured in the different variables. And then finally, I'm gonna invoke my connector. So it's basically the same flow I previously created by adding those two tools, the prompt and the connector. But in this case, I'm having more control over the conversational flow. For example, I have the possibility to have better control regarding what type of information I'm asking the user to provide, right? Or even provide as an option to select from a different list of values. That is something that today I cannot do in the tools section, but I can do through a topic. So let me test this prompt. Help me send a welcome email to my new hire. And since I have configured a topic to do that, you see that the agent has identified this topic instead of recommending to use a specific prompt, tool, or connector. So I'm gonna select this is a full-time employee. This is a remote employee. I have also options to select from here instead of having to type the specific job title. In this case, let's say it's a machine learning engineer. And the start date is gonna be this one. I'm gonna put the manager name, the body name, and it's processing my request. And as you know, this specific topic is basically not only drafting my welcome email, but also using the connector to send an email. In this case, it's asking me to provide an email address. So let me copy my email address. And finally, it has completed the task, and we can verify that it has sent the email successfully. So that's the magic of prompts, the moment your agent goes from being reactive to being creative, all while staying under your control. Next, we will kick off our final project and bring everything together to build the onboarding agent, leveraging all the components we have covered so far. If you have been enjoying the series, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I would love to hear how you're planning to use prompts in your own agents. See you in the next video.